IVM.
Worried about keeping up with your fave friends all summer? Or posting every perfectly pink sunset you see? Don't sweat the Connect. You can have it made in the shade with 4 lines of unlimited data for $100 a month. Scroll the staycation pics, find your new go-to takeout spot, or catch some rays on video chat. Whatever you and the crew are into, all the data makes it all that much better. Smile. You're on Cricket.
Cricket Core acquired on 4 lines. Data speed limited to 3 megabits per second. Cricket may slow data speeds when the network is busy. Additional fees, usage, and restrictions apply.
Welcome to Audio Gyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers, and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host, Kedar Nimkar.
Today I have Manish Banker with us on Audio Gyan. Manish graduated with the distinction from Institute of Environment Design, Gujarat in 1991. Thereafter he worked at the Osho Commune International in Pune for 2 years, contributing immensely to Commune's varied ongoing projects. Here he imbibed a new spiritual approach to spatial design as a means of connecting man with himself and his environment. Having identified the true meaning and the purpose of architecture, he established TAO Architecture Pvt in 1994. Passionate and enterprising, Manish has a dynamic, creative energy and an innate love for nature. And today we are here to discuss his approach to architecture design and his philosophical ideologies. So thank you, Manish, for giving us your time, and it's a real honor to have you on Audio Gyan.
Oh, thank you, Kedar. It's rather a pleasure of mine to be with you and share some of the ideas which are rolling, over my practice and my work. Thank you.
Manish, I've come up with 5 questions, and I'm hoping to have more like a philosophical conversation with you, and let's see how we unravel our conversation. First and foremost, I'll start with a more abstract question. It could be a very simple question, but very deep if you look at it from a why perspective, right? So what does shelter mean to you?
Shelter, if you primarily look at it, that it shows the sense of settlement, the sense of safety, sense of security, and sense of comfort within which, you live or you be settled down. To me, shelter is not just a simple one-layer word. It has a multi-layered meanings. As you see that, the shelter is primarily, we understand is a physical shelter.
Correct.
But to me, there are multi-layers of even physical shelters. For instance, man is born with a simple body. And the immediate shelter is the body which has been given to you to live within. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a first shelter you come across.
Oh.
And then if you look at a larger perspective, then the ozone layer is probably the most away shelter, which protects us in an entire globe. And to me, that's also a shelter. And there are 2 physical shelters by default we are born with. And then in between, we see what are the other shelters, within which we live. For instance, in a house also is a shelter. But then there are other bedrooms, which are also shelter within shelter. And so there are multi-layers. And these are physical layers I'm talking about. But also as a shelter, you also have intangible shelters, which are psychological shelters or energetical shelters, within which you feel comfortable. Because sometimes only physical shelter doesn't make you comfortable. And we, as human beings, born not only with our physical body, but we have energetical body also, our spiritual body, and our psychological body. And those also require shelters, which I find are the true purpose of architecture, to meet maximum layers of shelters. What is the difference, let's say, between car garage, and a house? Both are shelters. But look at the car is a simple product. and it is simply placed, within four walls, and that becomes a garage. I don't think you can keep human being in a similar fashion as you put a car. So I see that the man is much beyond his physical body. And we normally as people perceive architecture as a physical or a tangible body where we see aesthetics which is visually seen. But the experiential quality which architecture brings in, brings you energetic shelter, where you experience a qualitative connection with the nature, and by nature again with oneself. And to me, that's something which makes a building converted into architecture. So building is a mere garage, but the architecture is a soul infused inside.
Mm-hmm. So when you said there are different intangible shelters as well, right? So if I may go more abstract and say that is a state your shelter, is the country or patriotic political angle, are these also shelter formats? No, I'll tell you the reason why I was coming to, because then I want to understand that is architecture merely a boundary?
No, to me architecture is free of boundaries. Architecture, the buildings are boundaries, okay. To me architecture is conceived or formulated by the space, okay, which is within the four walls. So if you look at the true sense of architecture, architecture is not the walls or the roofs or the floor. To me architecture is generated as a gap or a space between or the among those walls and roofs, and that's space. And the space is one which human being is looking for. I mean, otherwise how can you live in a house without windows and doors? Tell me. I mean, so we generate walls to formulate that space within, and that's a true architecture. So your focus generally is gone to the visual aspect, the tangible aspect of either walls and roofs. But those are not the architecture. Those are devices which generates a gap among those walls within which human being lives. And that's the true architecture. That's a space, and which is boundaryless. See, the space is there all around. But to live, you have to create a wall and to formulate a space.
Just to distinguish between what is outside and what is inside.
Yes, even outside also is a space, right? Right? But then inside also you can create space. But then inside is something which makes you comfortable within that shelter. So what you're generating is a shelter. But shelter is the space within and not those walls and not those roofs. So that forms inside and outside. See, what is inside is the same space as which is outside. But because of those four walls, that space becomes inside. Otherwise, the space was already there. But we put a four walls and then it is converted into inside.
No, but those four walls only define the space, right?
Yes, they formulate the space. They formulate the space. But there are openings also through which you get a light inside, the air inside. And then you connect those inside and outside space through those openings. So walls are there. Like the walls can be in mud or glass or in metal or bricks and concrete. But the space within is not affected by what is there, as a material. Like
so is igloo a shelter?
Yes. Like a pot. You take a pot or a glass which is made of either material like glass or metal or clay. But the container is the space within, which has nothing to do with by which material that pot is made of. So igloo, maybe because igloo is suitable for maybe in those Iceland. But we have also igloos like bungas, which is in desert of Rajasthan or a Kutch, which are made of mud. So both serve the same purpose, but the materials are different. But remember, the shelter is the same for people living in Iceland or in the desert of Kutch.
Interesting. And if I may go more, I don't know what domain it will enter into, but then um, what's the importance, or what according to you is the underlying thread between which connects humans and make these shelters form, right? Like, why do they need architecture? Why do they need shelter?
See, to me, the whether it is made of any material, as I spoke, that the energetic layer by which man gets connected with the nature. To me, architecture is beyond building. See, when we talk about igloo or bunga or stone, or they are all formulating those walls and roofs. Okay, but 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 by formulating those walls and roofs, what you generate inside is a space, and that's what helps you to connect with the nature. And also, the ultimate goal of any man or a human being is to connect with himself. See, that's the whole journey for which everybody is born with. And that's where, that connection has to happen. Apart from living physically comfortable within the house, you also have to see that your energetic body or your personal being is flourished, evolved over the years. And architecture can help. Architecture cannot help just like that, but it can help or support those level of journey where energetically you meet yourself, you connect yourself with the nature and be one with the existential phenomena which is happening, which we call it either God or a mother nature or whatever you may say. But that's what I see is the deeper layer of architecture, apart from meeting your physical conveniences and comforts.
So from my understanding, at least, cave is one example where you really have that solitude. But you have any other instances where some architecture within India, outside India, as per your studies, which has helped man to discover himself or herself?
Yes. See, of course, it is a thirst within the man, okay, drives him to meet, those phenomena.
And then probably an example.
But it's not only architecture influence, but architecture supports that process.
So any instances?
And yes, like for instance, you go to let's say any temple, especially the sun temple in Modhera in Gujarat, where the sun is captured, on a particular day, that the sun rays falls directly on the deity, and it has a kund in the front, and one man is supposed to basically meditate and sit there inside and feel that energy, and then the whole cosmic energy through the rays of sun hits the center of a temple through particular window. That helps that to realize the cosmic energy and center of being one with the entire space. And so this is one example. Other is I've traveled to Japan and seen the Church of Light designed by TAO, and you see the way he has cut the concrete to allow sun coming within, or the light coming within the church, and in a shape of cross. And somehow it represents the ultimate energy of a cosmos coming in. And that's something which, when in that particular space, when you're silent, and those temples and churches are designed to rather bring you in that silent mode and be aware. The other incident is my visit to Japan, and I came across Church of Light designed by TAO, where he has carved cross within the concrete in a very minimalistic sense, which allows the whole focus going on the light penetrating through the concrete wall in the shape of cross. And to me, when you are sitting in that silent zone of a church in the four walls where the cross light, cut into the concrete, penetrating, and you're looking at that, somehow makes you realize that there's something which is beyond body, which is beyond, four walls, or which is beyond the physical entity. And there's one more incident I put it across is like when I visited Fallingwater House of Frank Lloyd Wright in US, which was my case study when I studied architecture. And somehow I was so touched by the entire organic architecture he has generated, which is probably one of the most famous house in the world. But it's not for its physicality, but the way it is set for man to experience, the magical presence of nature all around, and so beautifully designed. To me, for any architect, it's a treat, but for the people to live in is something which I'm sure, must have touched the bottom of our essential living as a part of, the entire existence. And that's something which I find, that architecture can go to the ultimate level for people to make and experience, the beauty of being one with the nature.
This is very fascinating for me to at least understand that there's a altogether different perspective to look at architecture. So, yeah, and in fact, that leads to a more like a real life practical example, because I met Balkrishna Doshi sir also when I was in Sangat, and I asked him more about Vastu Sharshtra, what it is, and he said that it's the science of nature.
Yes.
And obviously I didn't have the time or the knowledge or the questions prepared also to ask him further on those lines, but I have a very generic question which I've found in your few online videos as well. And I want to ask you, what is the importance of direction when it comes to building architecture? Example like east versus south facing. I don't want to get into the historical aspect, but just to understand your perspective on how do you see directions. And I've been doing some interior work of my house right now, and they said that Agni side pe if there's a chula hona chahiye. So I don't get it, and I just on the face value take certain things, but if you can just highlight upon some underlying principles around it.
See, primarily Vastu Shastra is a science of understanding nature. Especially, the buildings are predominantly defined by the sun path, because you need to have air and light, within the architecture. That makes architecture. So the wind and the sun, are the two primary aspects you design around a house. And your house it is defined by how the sun path is there. Like, the east is rising and then the west it sets. And different conditions and locational values, the house is designed, because sometimes you need a lot of sun, sometimes you don't want sun inside. So sometimes you want air inside, but you don't want sun to come in. And there are various aspects. So there are certain principles which are designed, which are defined rather to guide, people to design their houses. And so they are all scientific principles set. But they are, nowadays, the Vastu Shastra is gone beyond, those logical science, and got more driven by the superstition set, by some of the Shastris who are neither architect, nor engineers, but they are pandits, and who have no knowledge of science of architecture. People being ignorant, are rather taken on a ride about some specific principles which they don't care about actually the original science. And everything is commercialized nowadays. I mean, why somebody would come and give you advice by getting paid, for simple principles of where the sun should. See, sun is rising, but somebody comes and gives advice. To me, everything is commercialized. And they also ride on the fear, people carry, because everybody is fearful of future somehow or other, and it's very easy to connect such aspects of Vastu based on the Shastra, hiding the truth behind them, and then driving people to just simply make more fearful, and they inject some kind of viruses in the heads of people. And I've been practicing architecture, and not a single client who's come, without that sort of questions that what is true Vastu, and we realized that we need to guide people. As an architect, I do not use this propaganda of Vastu Sharshtra to define our design, but we simply follow. As an architect, we are taught to understand the sun path, the wind direction, the cross ventilation, the passive cooling system, which earlier our houses used to be in such a nice way without air conditioning and electrification. We had a very cool system of living in the Rajasthan and Gujarat, where I come from. And if you go to Kashmir, even the harsh winter, people used to be comfortable inside. Now, people don't care. These Shastras don't care about, what comfort zone is. They just simply set 4 directions and they put you inside, whether you are in Kashmir or in Rajasthan. And people simply follow that because of the fear, mostly people carry within them. I think true Vastu Shastra is something which is purely science based on the nature. And it has to be understood and practiced by architects rather than following the Shastras. But unfortunately, that's something which architects don't have control on the people, because they don't want to go deeper into the science of architecture. They want to have some ready-made solutions. It's like allopathy, people want just a little tube on top to put. They don't want to go into the roots of their health. Mm-hmm. People just want little, tablets to get themselves, okay. So this is how I think the architecture has been driven. Mm-hmm. So directions are important, probably, but that is only when they are followed for the right purpose of following, them, other than superstitiously, following them and putting your kitchen on one particular direction. I think as long as you get a cross ventilation, a good sunlight. Earlier, kitchen used to be on the east because you want sun rays coming inside your house. So when your house, is facing east, your kitchen facing east, then you get a direct sunlight coming in your kitchen. That is to keep your kitchen very hygienic. People used to cook early morning, and that we didn't have that time the kind of cleaning devices and those the light properly.
There were no electricity also.
So these were principles developed. Nowadays you can put an exhaust fan, you put an electrical light and still get the better kitchen. And they set some kind of directions and particular corner to put your within the kitchen also. Then there are, I have heard that people you to put your chula or your stove in a particular corner. This is going even further extreme, and who cares, what is actually the true nature of Vastu. People hardly care about planting trees, outside the house, but they care about, where the stove should be.
Correct.
So it's a wrongly driven phenomenon.
Obviously, I believe Vastu Shastra can be like a complete, probably a 12-part series or 21-part series with is just documenting all the ideologies there.
But nutshell, I tell you that the weightage of intelligence is getting reduced in the superstitious Vastu Shastra followed. Right? Yeah. Because you create a set up a belief system and follow that. But the intelligence, the true architecture is something, or the true Vastu Shastra is following the intelligence, following the true principles of science, and then following. And that's something which is important.
Yeah, to document that, I'm saying it will take some time. Yeah. So, Manish, I wanted to ask you last 2 questions. Manish, I wanted to ask you last 2 questions. Like, what are your views? And this is also, I've asked multiple people whom I've interviewed, at least in the architecture space, that at least this is my observation, where cities or places have started looking similar. Like Pune would look like a Belgaum, or say Chandigarh would look like, I don't know, Ludhiana, or Bombay will look like a New York. Like, right, there are these steel flyovers and glass buildings which are just popping up. And to this, Balkrishna sir obviously gave a beautiful answer. He said that the architects are no longer poets. And it's a beautiful way to put it, obviously. But I wanted to know your perspective as to why this is happening. And if you have traveled more, obviously, then your observations would be different. But this is just my take. So you can...
I see that, and yes, especially your question is relevant to the cities, and the cityscape has started looking very monotonous. Because if you look at our cities, especially in India, first of all, they're ignorant about the historical value of the city. We hardly, take care of our heritage structures, which talks and represents our historical evolution of those cities. We cover them very comfortably, with those banners around, and we don't really want to see the true face of our cities, which has been growing for last 200 or 100 years. On the other side, everything is getting commercialized in the cities. Each space, even like a small surface on the building, gets utilized by some of the big banners, to commercialize billboards. Or they want to cover it to maximum space. They hardly care about the sun. Or they want to put your glass right at the extreme edge so that you get maximum space utilized inside. And so buildings start looking boxes of glass and thin skin, which burns your air conditioners like anything in the cities. I see that it's in our ignorance about valuing our own cities, our own space within which we live, and we allow commercial activity to rather be dominant on our apparent cities. We have also we have given away rather our cities to all those commercial billboards and commercial development. We haven't controlled our own value, especially through our heritage structures. And whatever the new construction or the bridges, and the requirement is endless. Like, we want to go faster and faster within the cities, so we create more flyovers. Rather than controlled public transport, we allow more private transport to move, which is endless. And we want wider and wider roads and less space for the gardens and trees. We have chopped most of the trees. So what we see are only buildings. So to me, it's just an ignorance about our own sensitive approach with which city, started growing. For instance, not only the built environment, but look at what we are treating our rivers, around which most of the cities have grown. Now, since we got water on a tap, we hardly care about the river. And we are totally ignoring, rather using, especially in Pune, the rivers are nothing less than gutter. They are just, they dump all the sewage within the water. And what is that? Because we don't need water now, because it's supplied by tap and you pay for it. And see, the other aspect here, is that our urban life is influenced by various products like cars and appliances and fashion and phones, which are industrial products globally available everywhere. So what happens that our aesthetics and our way of looking at each product has become almost the same. We have not started we're not getting distinguished by our locational values, but by the global, products bombarding, on ourselves. And there's nothing wrong in it to have aesthetics like our fashion. We wear jeans and trousers which are global nowadays. We have lost our own fashion of dhoti and kurta. Similarly, architecture is also now being driven by global industrial products like steel, glass, and they're easy to, available and execute your work. and fast. And so anything which is speedy, is more preferred. So what has happened that all these things have started influencing our, the infrastructure around which we live. So, and it's quite obvious that, once you pick up those industrial products, they start looking almost the same.
And in that movie which I saw, as in that film, like a short clip on YouTube which I saw, you worked on one project in Jodhpur where you utilize the stones there.
Yes.
So if you can tell us that how TAO architecture has been trying to avoid this commercialization or utilizing local resources to give its own distinct style.
Yes, so it's so important. The architecture is something which requires to be local. Simple reason is the climate, which you cannot, you can't bring European climate, to the Jodhpur. So you can't bring those European architecture to the Jodhpur. And Jodhpur is prominently having a harsh sun, it's called Sun City, and has to have a climatic solutions as a part of integral construction technology which you need to adopt. So, and if you refer our historical buildings, they are full of wisdom, because that time they were not overexposed to the global market. The
global market was not
there,
that
yes,
evolved.
not evolved. And that helped them to generate their own solutions. And every region has their own specific materials. It seems that they are meant for that climatic, conditions. And the Jodhpur stone, the sandstone, is an ideal material to keep your house warm in the winter and cool in the summer. So we adopted a local quarry stones to build house. And we went ahead, and we referred some of the good architecture, even of the old Havelis, to find out how the cooling phenomenon was taken care of by having a passive cooling system integral with the architecture. We also studied works of architect Nimish Patel, who has done phenomenal work in his life, to bring those traditional wisdom into the contemporary works of architecture. And then we learned few things and we started adopting. And to me, there's nothing wrong being a researcher and learner to develop your architecture. And we thought that we'll set up also a language which is a contemporary in style, but adopting the traditional wisdom as a core value to design a building. And our Jodhpur house called Shunyam, which won a national award, for its design aspects. And we are proud and happy to share with you that. Thank you.
Wow. Manish, I would like to conclude with one last question. What, according to you, should be the focus area for architects in the coming decades? Obviously, to make sustainable living, or any other parameters which you consider are important in a longer run, maybe 2 decades, 3 decades out, or even 10 decades, I don't know.
I think sustainable living and being aware about the entire ecological system is the core concern, for any new generation coming. And especially architects are also primarily a bigger culprit, to bring a carbon footprint, on the earth. Not only architects, but they are primarily responsible for it. And I find that architects need to be more sensitive in their practice to demonstrate better solutions which are more eco-friendly, rather than helping development to go fast but absolutely ignorant about the future. If you look at the development of current scenario, is most of the time trying to gain short-term gains, and losing out on the long-term results. We are ignorant about our own sustainability. For instance, Cape Town is losing their water. Bangalore is supposed to be the next city in the world which will not have water. And then many other cities are aligned, in the queue. Are we not sincere enough to think about our next generations? And architects do definitely carry a larger responsibility apart from the policymakers and the politicians who are defining those current scenarios for new generations to actually step into and replace ourselves in coming years.
But I'm sorry, I don't want to blame any particular builder or an architect, or in fact not even an architect, but what I've observed is there are these independent architects or relatively small time people, but then who are these architects who are designing Lodha and Rustamji and it's like, I'm just not taking brand names, but these are the people which you see in the cityscape building like 150 floors ka towers and these are glass buildings.
See, to me, there's nothing wrong, building buildings which are need-based. But to me, our buildings are gone beyond need-based. They want to go fast. They want to have a speedy recovery of profits at the cost of our own environment, which are, I think, bothersome. And everybody should ask question to themselves whether they are only doing for the commercial reasons, or are they having any responsibility towards our own globe, towards our own Earth, Mother Earth, and ensure that that whatever we do today, will have a less and less impact on the ecological system, because we're going to last for a few years, and the Earth and globe has been there for million years, and we want them to continue. We are the one who was taking this thing on a granted and spoiling our own globe, which probably we need to ask questions to ourselves. And I think that's the major responsibility of every citizen of this globe, including all architects, to continue and questioning themselves.
Beautiful. Obviously, there are tons of things. We started off from body being the shelter till ozone, and then coming down to I think the whole conversation was around being more introspective and understanding where we are heading, and it's an individual responsibility which everyone has to look after. So I think that is a good note to end this. Thank you, Manish, for giving your time. It was wonderful talking to you, and I hope I can call you again for another interview where we can probably discuss a particular case study which will be more insightful in terms of how TAO architecture has helped people to or help spaces to be more inclusive, more sustainable. And on that note, thank you once again.
Thank you very much. And hope that our work keeps on helping ourselves as well, because we are also evolving. And our efforts are always positive. And let's hope that something better comes out.
Sure. All the best for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Savan, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.
Hello! It's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On This Round is on Me, Gauri is joined by Shweta Nanda. They talk about the financial independence and how it is to be a woman entrepreneur. On Anish Thing, Anish welcomes ultra-marathon runner Shivani Gharat. Shivani shares her journey of how she ran her first marathon, the mindset of a runner, and what it actually takes to run a full marathon. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Naveen, Akash and Shreyas talk about the Korean band BTS serving in the military and its repercussions. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Wing Greens and their latest acquisitions and about the Indian sexual wellness market. And on Shunya One, Sheila Datya is joined by Dinika Bhatia, CEO and founder of Nuttigritties. They talk about coming from a business family and Dinika's journey in creating healthy and guilt-free snacking. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting new merch out there for you. Also, do follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And do remember to spread the word about these shows and any other shows you might be listening to. appreciate them, rate them, and review them wherever you are listening to them. You can also check out all our other shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week: Volvo XC40 Recharge, Bumble, Heads Up for Tails, Kotak Privy League Program, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thanks, guys. Without you, this would not be possible.
Do you often find yourself surrounded by conversations about Web3, blockchain, NFTs, DAOs? What are these terms and how do they affect our future on the internet? So many questions, but don't worry, we've got answers to all your questions. Hi, I'm Eklavya Bhattacharya, and on our show Future Proofing, we try to decode the impact of these future technologies on various industries with experts and tech enthusiasts. Tune into new episodes coming out every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app and the website, or wherever you get your podcasts from.